This is Jen Bender, Associate Artistic Director at Paper Mill Playhouse. Welcome to our first Director's Viewpoint discussion of the season. This is our 85th season, so it's a great way to kick it off. It's my pleasure to introduce you to The Great Gatsby's director, Marc Bruni, and choreographer, Dominique Kelley.
Hi, Jen. So
Hi.
glad to be here.
Yeah, so Marc, you've been here before.
I have. I've gotten to direct twice here before. Once the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, which starred none other than Tony winner Ali Stroker, and White Christmas. Mervyn Berlin's White Christmas was the other time that I came here.
So how long has it been since you were here last?
A long time. I don't really remember what year the White Christmas was, but that was the most recent one, and it was probably about 10 years ago.
Got it. And have you been thinking ever since? I can't wait to get back to Paper Mill.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen a number of things since then and had a lot of friends and colleagues who have worked on shows here at the Paper Mill. And so it's been fun to take the train out and have dinner at the Milburn Standard and come on up the hill and see something.
Yep, all those must-sees of Milburn.
Yep.
And Dominique, this is your first time at Paper Mill. Had you ever been out here to see a show?
I've never been out here.
So is Paper Mill what you expected? Some things that you expected, some things different?
I only heard that it was a big barn. So a barn it is not. It is a theater, so they were wrong. But
there are no animals.
No animals, but it is vast and it's really beautiful because when you stand on stage and then look out over the audience, like it just keeps going.
So I'm curious, how did you choreograph in a rehearsal room without having seen the actual theater?
So I asked people, I literally said like, when you're on stage, what does it feel like? And they were like, well, when you're on stage, it just feels like the whole room is open, which led me to believe, I'm like, well, I can't do anything small and intricate. That would never show up. And I was like, it just needs to be something that is so dynamic and vibrant that even if you're in the backstage, not only do you see it, you feel it.
And Marc, back to you for a moment. How did you first become a part of this Great Gatsby team?
Well, Kait and Nathan and Jason, during the pandemic, were commissioned by a Korean producer named Chin-Soo Shin to create a new version of The Great Gatsby. Great Gatsby went into public domain, and that was a favorite book of Mr. Shin's. And the original plan was to do a production that would be done in Korea. And they started to write a couple of songs, and they shared an early demo of a few songs and a rough draft of some of Act One. And I read it and thought, oh, this is really interesting. This is a way into this material that seems very unique and dynamic, and unlike the expectation of what you might see one of The Great Gatsby. And so I said, I'm in, let's give this a go. And we developed it over the course of several readings. We did 2 or 3 readings, and then we started bringing in other collaborators, and it's a show that is very design focused. Obviously, everyone thinks of the sort of opulent design of The Great Gatsby, and we were from the beginning trying to set out to create a version of The Great Gatsby that was commensurate with the expectation of opulence and still tell a story that was very human. And what Kait has done in adapting the book smartly through the lens of today and through the lens of casting choices that reflect the America of today and characterizations that take what's in the novel and expand them out to include points of view, especially from the female characters, that are not as fully drawn as they are, because in the novel, from Nick Carraway's point of view, they're able to have a more fulsome characterization because of that. And that was something that was very interesting in that, even in the very early days of their adaptation.
I know you've worked with Jason Howland before. Had you also worked with Nathan or Kait?
I met Nathan and Kait working on a web series during the pandemic called A Killer Party, which was a web series musical that they wrote to give a bunch of actor friends of theirs jobs when nobody was working and the entire theater industry was shut down. And we created this web series that had 2 or 3 songs per episode, 8-minute episodes. There's 8 episodes. It told a self-contained story of a murder mystery. A group of theater professionals and the head of the theater is found dead, and they all solve the mystery. And it was filmed individually in actors' apartments and then edited all together.
I love that. So I should mention for our listeners, Nathan Tysen is the lyricist.
Nathan Tysen, Kait Kerrigan,
is the book writer, and
That's
they are
right.
married.
They are indeed, and they live right here in New
Yes,
Jersey,
I think
like in Maplewood, right next door.
10 minutes away, which is very convenient.
They were very, very excited that we were coming to Millburn because their commute was going to get much better.
Yeah, I know Jeremy Jordan also lives in the vicinity, which
Jeremy
is
Jordan also has a great commute.
Yes, I know actors, creatives always like it when they're very close to the theater.
Absolutely, just roll out of bed, come over to the theater.
Yeah. So Dominique, how did you become attached to this project, and had you met Marc before?
Ironically, there was a connector that connected us. Basically, they were just like, we have a director that we feel like you would really enjoy, so why don't you have a Zoom conversation with him? And it was about a different project that I wasn't right for, but I heard that he said I would be right for this one. And I credit Marc Bruni for all the things, and it's been a wonderful working relationship. Especially when you have somebody who challenges you to be better and to be smarter and to be faster. That's the perfect person that you would want to collaborate with.
At what point did you join the team once it had started to be written?
Very late. I mean, I joined in, I believe, November, December of just last year in 2022. So I was there for the lab where we wanted to see what the staging and the movement would feel like incorporated into the piece.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned it was late, because for most musicals, it would be really early.
True.
Musicals normally take anywhere from 7 to 10 years, sometimes a little longer.
This one's been on a bit of a fast track.
Yeah. Is that because of the pandemic?
I think so. I think that they were very motivated to finish it, and they are fast writers, and so they just gave themselves deadlines and kept on making it better. And after every reading, sometimes you do a reading and then something languishes for a while, and you don't really work on it and go on to other projects. And because there weren't a whole lot of other projects going on, this could get a lot of the writer's focus. And so they made this a priority, and every single time we've all gotten together and gotten on the same page about what needs to happen and what needs to be done. And they've come back with rewrites that are really smart, really incisive, and we've been able to, I think, improve it a great deal.
I would imagine there's some shorthand too, because you and Jason have worked together.
Yeah.
Jason and Nathan wrote Paradise Square. And of course,
That's right.
Nathan and Kait hadn't worked together on a show.
This was the first time they worked together. Yeah.
But they do live together.
They do live together. So
we want to assume they have a shorthand.
Yeah, that's helpful for scheduling production meetings.
Yeah. So I think that helps a lot too, that there's you had previous professional relationships and personal relationships going into this. So I think that helps.
And we all like each other.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
We laugh a lot, which is great in this process, because, theater can be daunting, and when you're creating and you're birthing something new and you don't know how it's going to be, at least at the end of the night when you can all laugh about something arbitrary, that always helps.
Yeah.
It's especially helpful when we're rehearsing the second act.
Yes.
Very much so. Yes.
No spoiler alerts for the listeners, but Act 2 is a little heavier.
No dark.
Than Act 1.
Well, anyone who's read the novel knows that there's quite a few events that don't go so well.
So speaking of the novel, I know I read it probably my sophomore year in high school. Had you both read it at any point or somewhat recently, or seen the films?
I had read it a long time ago. And then in conjunction with the beginning of working on this, I reread it. And I had seen the Baz Luhrmann film. I had not seen the Robert Redford Coppola film, or the other two films. There's a really early one, and then there's one that was like a Canadian one that is that Mira Sorvino is in.
Oh.
So there's a number of them. I've become familiar with all of them now, but just because I feel like it's helpful to have the completion of knowing what else, how other people have approached the material, but none of them in musical form. So that's what's been new about this, is to discover how these characters sing and why they sing, and what causes them to be able to express their feelings directly to an audience, especially a character that in the novel, like Gatsby, is so mysterious and is so veiled, and the way that they've been able to find a way for Daisy and Gatsby specifically to relate to an audience and sing their feelings and have it feel essential to the narrative is, I think, really a successful.
Yeah. And Dominique, what about you? Had you read it, seen movies?
Well, I was homeschooled for most of my high school career, so it was never required reading. I went to high school for my senior year, and by that point, either people have read it or not. So I was like, oh, let me read it. And I didn't finish it. I read as much as I could, and I was like, there's other books that appeal to me. And unlike everybody else, with Great Gatsby, I was just like, it didn't really do much for me until hearing the music, reading the script, seeing the work that they all put into it. That's what was my way in. And then also to seeing people who looked like me and had voices that I really attached to and point of views was my way in. And I'm hoping that other people who might feel the same way I do, they have a way in with this book and the American dream and these theories and like these tropes and all these other things that we tackle in the show.
Yeah, I was curious if you could see yourself in this version after, I assume, not seeing yourself in the book version. I know one of the things I love about this production and this approach is, similarly, I looked at Gatsby and Daisy in the book and just thought, those are different from me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't identify with those people. I am judging those people and their actions, and I feel much more sympathetic and aligned with why they do what they do in this version, which I think is what you want in a musical. I always think a great musical is, and any kind of art, when you can see yourself and identify specifically with characters in the story. So you're invested in it, not just watching it.
Sure, absolutely. And I think that one of the things that they discovered when they started working on this was just how many parallels there are with the sort of diversity and income inequality and coming out of a pandemic. They were coming out of a pandemic in 1922 with the Spanish flu. We're just coming out of a pandemic now, and what it means to have been cloistered up for that long and then to be suddenly have everything available. And that said, this society that's stratified and that has the haves and the have-nots, there's just a more wider expanse than ever, and that certainly feels very contemporary and up to date. And so I think they're finding a way that can resonate, and that these are real people and they're not just. I think a lot of people think of The Great Gatsby and they think of the dressing up and the parties and the sort of the look of it, and it's not just about the look of it. It's about that these were living, breathing humans that happened to be, wearing flapper dresses, but they had the same hopes, dreams, disappointments, excitements, and so putting that on stage and hopefully, letting that resonate for today in a way that is a bit of a cautionary tale and a bit of something we can, potentially learn from moving forward.
Yeah, when we are choosing shows for each Paper Mill season, the questions we always ask are why this show and why now? Because often there's a show that's really great or was really meaningful at its time, but maybe doesn't feel as relevant now. And this feels, the way you just described it, just perfectly relevant, especially having just come off this pandemic. I didn't realize until I'd seen some photos, I guess, online about during the Spanish flu, everyone wearing their masks.
Absolutely.
I mean, it looked like now.
Mm-hmm,
Fortunately and unfortunately, because that was 1922 and we're in 2023, and some of the issues that we're talking about in the show, we're still tackling now.
Mm-hmm.
We're still talking about it. And then not only that, I think another way that helped me was attributing the characters to people I know now. Because I'm like, eccentric millionaires or billionaires, I feel like we know a good amount. And I was like, is this Elon Musk? You know what I mean? Or like, oh, what character would this be? What character would that be? It's just like, Jordan, would that be Serena Williams? Would that be Janelle Monáe? Like Daisy, would that be Meghan Markle? You know what I mean? Like, who would these people be? And I think that has been the best thing for me, is seeing something in 2023 eyes. And a lot of times we caution against that because we say it's a period piece and you can't judge it. But if you insert who you know now into those characters, it makes it a lot more palatable for certain audiences who can't relate.
Yeah, that's one thing I really love about this production is you're experiencing it on two levels simultaneously. There is 100 years ago and there is now, and they both feel relevant and equally present, which I assume is the goal of your approach.
Yeah. I'm glad that that's coming across.
Yes. Dominique, I wanted to actually go back. You mentioned earlier that you were homeschooled and then went to high school as a senior, but I know you were performing when you were much younger than that. When did you start performing professionally?
I did my first European tour at 12, and I was on the road with my father. We did Black and Blue, which was a musical review about like Harlem Renaissance, Duke Ellington music. It was life-changing, and it basically was the like main thing that I can go back to for my love of Harlem Renaissance and just that time period in general. A lot of interesting things happened in that time period, but I do have to say Harlem Renaissance was very influential. And then after that, I did Bringing the Noise, Bringing the Funk. I did at 15, and I did the national tour. So because of that, I was on tour from the age of 12 to 17. So then after that, I was like, you know what? I think I want to go to high school. So I went to high school for a year. I was valedictorian. And then I went to UConn, University of Connecticut, on a partial animal science scholarship.
I love that. That's one of my favorite fun facts about you, is the animal science.
Yep. I thought I was going to work in the zoo. Yeah.
So how did you switch from zoo dreams to choreographer dreams?
Is it that different?
No, not at all. Not at all. Same thing. What I've realized, part of it was financial, because to take care of the sheep, that was $4.50 per hour. And to teach dance class, that was $75 an hour. So being a college kid, in that moment, I was like, And then also, I got sick of smelling like sheep all the time. It's not fun on a college campus when you always smell like sheep. So I was just like, I wanted to smell better and have more money. So then I also realized that dance, performing, choreography, directing, all those things was just continuing to be a part of my life. And I saw myself going down that trajectory. So I said, bye-bye animals.
So once you decided to pursue choreography full-time, did you stay on the East Coast? I think you went to LA eventually. I
did go to LA. Being from Connecticut, I came through New York and I did, Broadway, TV, film. And then I did a show in La Jolla at the La Jolla Playhouse. I never moved back.
What was that show?
That was The Wiz. And I got infatuated with the sun and space, the sun, space. So basically my parents moved me out of my New York apartment and I stayed in LA, and I was just like, well, I'll try it out for a month, and I ended up getting a job, and 17 years later, still there. And
were you doing theater all that time?
No, I did TV and film, worked with recording artists. I worked with NFL teams. I worked with Cirque. I did NBA teams. Professor. I'm an adjunct professor at Pace University, and I teach the choreography on film class. So I was pretty busy. Also, working with the Emmys. I'm a governor for the TV Academy. So between musical theater and all the other things, it's been nice to paint with a lot of different colors and to just express myself and meet people and tell stories. And where musical theater gaps happen, I fill in with TV and film. And then where TV and film gaps happen, I fill in the knowledge of musical theater. So it just helps.
Now, you're being very modest. I have to ask you to drop a few names because I know you've worked with incredible people.
Sure. Beyonce, Ariana Grande.
I'm familiar.
Pink, Mariah Carey, Janet Jackson, Usher recently, Camila Cabello, Serena Williams, Meryl Streep.
And now Marc Bruni.
And Marc Bruni, Jen Bender.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm glad we could fit into that long list of illustrious people. I wanted to talk to both of you. Marc, I know a little more of your history just because you and I have come up together a little bit in the Broadway scene. I know you were working with some incredible mentors along the way.
Yeah, I had a very, very lucky early part of my career in that I was able to be an assistant associate to a number of directors and director choreographers that gave me a window into working with scale and working at this level. And they were able to open my eyes to a world that I always dreamed of being a part of, and feel very lucky to have been able to. I early on, I said, I'm going to get on this train and I'm going to go to the end of the track. And if somebody tells me I need to get off, then I will. And I'll go be a lawyer or something. And fortunately, that hasn't happened yet. So
I always said that too. I said to people, I'm going to give myself 30 years in the theater. And if it doesn't work out, I'll do something else. I think I'm 20 years in. So far, so good.
So far, so good.
There's always animal science if I want to pivot.
Yeah.
There's zoos everywhere.
I will say that the dance card in theater is not going to be empty for long for you, my friend.
Oh, thank you.
Wow.
I'm so excited for people to see your work. I think it's going to be surprising and fabulous, and there's going to be a lot to talk about it.
Thank you. I hope so.
Absolutely.
And what's it been like switching maybe isn't the right word, pivoting a little bit from your work in LA to being back in the musical theater world?
It's lovely because you get to show the whole scope. Like, people sit there with 2 hours plus of your work. We're in TV or film or music videos. Sometimes it's just a quick snapshot and you're just doing something for an artist quickly, but it's nice to really do an arc of storytelling. And not only is choreography just dance steps, it's more so about movement direction. How would the character move? How do they walk? How do they bevel? How do they greet other people? So I think with choreography and movement direction, it's not necessarily making somebody look good, it's making somebody feel good so they're able to portray their character to the best of their ability.
And I'd imagine there's a different storytelling component in theater than you have with some of the TV and film stuff you've done.
Yes and no. Ironically, a lot of it is hand in hand. It's just that usually I'm working with one artist who sings and a lot of other people dance, as opposed to here, everybody's singing, and they're singing so well, and they're wailing. So, that puts a little bit of limit on things too, but it also adds because you have people singing beautiful songs while they're dancing their faces off.
That's great. For both of you, for people who haven't seen Gatsby, what would you like to share without giving too much plot away to entice people to come if they haven't read or seen a movie?
Well, good luck getting a ticket, I guess. But
yes.
I mean,
yes. If you're listening to this and you don't have a ticket, I'm sorry. I hope you subscribe early next year.
We're as surprised as you. That's wonderful. I think that it's a big epic sweep with great songs that are, I think, destined to be kind of musical theater standards, sung by some of the best singer-actors in the business, and choreography that remixes modern day and the 20s in a way that is really exciting and new. A physical production that is on a scale that you don't see very often, grand, facile at transitioning from one kind of grand moment to another. It kind of gives you the feels. It gives you some comedy, some tragedy, and a message about the attainability of the American dream or lack thereof, and I think asks some questions that we are all grasping and struggling with as Americans and today. And hopefully that's a conversation that this can start in audience members. Yeah.
You also mentioned incredible singers. We have to talk about Jeremy Jordan and Eva Noblezada, who
how lucky are we?
Unbelievable
they're the best.
in this show.
They are extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. The top flight voices, top flight actors, the two of them also have incredible chemistry, which isn't something you can ever dictate or direct, or it's something that happens or it doesn't. And it's very much up present with these two actors, and they make you care about two characters that you don't necessarily care about, in other iterations of The Great Gatsby. I know when I've seen them in the room just goofing around and having such a good time together, that's the type of thing you can't teach or even encourage. It's like people click or they don't. They have the shared sense of humor, and they are wonderfully collaborative, and it's been a joy to work with them. Yeah, it's so wonderful to watch them on stage because it's just so believable that they knew each other, spoiler alert, and fell in love and reconnect. Yeah. And we get to see those two actors transition into those two characters so beautifully. Well, that's the end of our conversation for today. Thank you both for being here, Marc Bruni and Dominique Kelley.
Thank you.
And this was the first time we've done this discussion in front of a live studio audience. So thank you, all of our guests who joined us today.